Happy Thursday, friends. It is Miss Jackson jumping on here to talk about adding integers. We are going to do the same thing today that we did on Wednesday. We are going to do guided notes together through the video, and then you have an assignment that needs to be finished and submitted to me along with your notes to make sure that you get proper attendance for your work. So let's get to it. Adding integers using models is what we're going to work on first. We're just reviewing what we worked on yesterday with the number lines. We want to think of the addition sign as the word more. A number plus a negative number. So when you are adding a negative number, start at the first number, you're going to get more negative, which means that you are moving left on the number line. A number plus a positive number. Start at the first number and you're going to get more positive, which means moving right on the number line. Okay, and then we are going to model on the first example. We're starting at -3 and going, and then we're adding 2. So start at 0. We're drawing our arrow to -3. And then we are adding a +2. So we are getting more positive, which means that we are going to go right 1, 2 places. And our final answer is -1. Second example is -2 plus -3. We are adding 2 negatives together, which means that our answer will in fact be negative because we are never crossing 0 to get to the positive side. Draw your first arrow to -2. And then you're going to draw your second arrow 3 more spaces, and you are going to end up at -5. And you can go ahead and write those answers up there. And remember, as always, if you need to pause the video so that you can catch up on your own paper, feel free to do that. Third example, we'll start at 0. -1 means I'm going left. And then I'm going to get more positive, which means I need to go in the right directions. I'm going to go right 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm ending my model at +3. Like I said, this is just a review from Wednesday's guided notes on modeling on a number line. All right, let's go back up to the top, and we are going to look at modeling using counters. One positive and one negative counter form a 0 pair because they cancel each other out. So that is the same thing as saying -1 plus +1 is equal to 0. And yesterday we learned that that was additive inverses. Oh, having some trouble writing that. Okay, that's when we add opposites together and they equal 0. So the directions here say to use counters to show each number you are adding together. Take away any 0 pairs. So that's going to be your +1, -1. That forms 0. So we're going to take away those 0 pairs, then count the counters that remain. So here is the directions for counters. Color the positive ones yellow, negative ones red. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. The first example says +5 plus -2. So I color my positive yellow, and on your notes, I have went ahead and included the circles. So you just need to drag and drop them over the circles on your notes. So I'm coloring all of these positive ones yellow. And then I'm going to switch colors, and I'm going to color my 2 red that are negative. Okay, so for this next part, it says take away any 0 pairs. So we do that by Xing out. If I X out a -1, that means I'll have to X out a negative or a +1 because then those are the 0 pairs. Them added together will equal 0. I mark out another -1 and I mark out another +1, and that is my second 0 pair. And so then I am left with +3. I know they're positive because they're yellow. And then I know that these right here, I'm going to go ahead and label them so I don't get confused. Those are my 0 pairs. Let's go ahead and move on to the second example. I'm -4 plus 2. So I'm going to go back to red because I have to color 4 of them red because they're 4 negatives. And then once I do that, I have 2 positives. So switch to yellow, color 2 of them yellow. And again, on yours, you're just dragging and dropping those colored counters already on top of the model. And then we're going to go ahead and mark out our 0 pairs. 1 positive, 1 negative, that's a 0 pair. 1 positive, 1 negative, and those are the only 0 pairs that I have. And then I'm left with 2 red counters. So that lets me know my answer is -2. All right, in the last example, we are going to color 3 of them red because I have -3. And then I'm going to color 1 more red because it's -1. I do not have any opposites to cross out to form a 0 pair. So I am finished. I'm going to just add up how many negatives I have. I have 4. So that means that answer is -4. And I'm going to make myself a note, no 0 pairs. So -3 plus -1 is -4. All right, so that should wrap us up for modeling. We are going to move on to adding integers using rules. So now that we have down the modeling part of which direction we move on the number line, 0 pairs, being able to show our work, now we're going to move on to the easier part, and that is just using plain out rules, okay? So when we add integers that have the same sign, and when we talk about same sign, we are talking about positive plus positive, or negative plus negative. All right, so when we have same sign integers, we are going to add their absolute value of the integers and keep the same sign, okay? So we're going to add their absolute values and keep the same sign, and we will have plenty of examples to work out in just a second. When we are adding opposite sign integers, we have positive plus negative, or negative plus positive, okay? So when we add opposite sign integers, we are going to subtract the absolute values of the integers and take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday on our guided notes about how that's what helps us to determine whether it's positive or negative, is finding the number with the greater absolute value. Okay, so what I like to do and what I tell all my students is that when we are working the examples, try and make this bigger, we need to decide if we are adding or subtracting first. So I am going to look at my signs on A. Since they are opposite signs, then I know I'm going to subtract because that's what my notes told me up here. Opposite signs subtract. On B, I have same signs. So I know that I'm going to add, and again, I'm just writing a little S or an A in the corner so I know which one I'm doing. On C, I have opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract. And then on D, they are the same sign, so I'm going to add. All right, so let's go back and look at example A. -9 plus 13. I'm subtracting, so I have 13 minus 9. And that is going to work out to be 4. I'm going to write my answer right here. Now I have to look at the number that has the higher absolute value in order to figure out if 4 stays positive or if it needs to be negative. So the absolute value of -9 is 9. The absolute value of 13 is 13. Since 13 has a greater absolute value and 13 is positive, then my answer stays positive. 4 is the correct answer. All right, let's look at example B. -16 plus -22. They are same signs. We already said we would add them, so we're going to add them up. 16 plus 22. 6 plus 2 is 8, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So I have 38. And then if you go back up to your rules, it says that we're going to add, and then we keep the same sign. And since both of these are negative, that means that my answer will in fact be negative. Add and keep the same sign. Okay, moving on to C. We need to subtract 48 minus 36. And 8 minus 6 is 2. And 4 minus 3 is 1. So I have 12. Now again, we are going to use absolute value to decide if our answer is going to be positive or negative. Absolute value of 36 is 36. Absolute value of negative 48 is 48. Since 48 has a greater absolute value and it's negative, that means our answer needs to go negative. All right. And example D. We have negative 12 plus negative 45. And same signs we add. And we keep the same sign. 5 plus 2 is 7. And 4 plus 1 is 5. So I have 57. And again, we keep the same sign. Both of these are negative. So my answer will be negative 57. Okay, I'm going to zoom out here. Move down to trying to move over. So my computer is not cooperating, so we will just move on to F. Negative 21 plus 8. We are going to subtract because these are opposite signs. Well, I seem to be frozen right here. All right, y'all, bear with me while I try to figure out how to stop this recording.